It's pretty common for a brand to release a flagship speaker followed by something more affordable with the promise of similar performance. I mean, JBL does this, B&W does this, KLIPSCH, the list is endless. And sometimes it works, and sometimes, well, it doesn't. Will Mission's new 700, the smaller, more obtainable take on the stellar 770 we already reviewed, meet the challenge? Let's find out. Throw the grills on the Mission 700 and you might mistake it for the larger, more expensive 770. Like the 770, the 700 is a two-way front-ported speaker, but with the 700 you will find a smaller 6.5-inch woofer and a 1.25-inch soft dome tweeter. The reported frequency response of 45 Hz to 20 kHz is almost as good as the pricier 770, with the 700 giving up some of that bass to its big brother. Impedance is basically the same at 8 ohms, with both speakers dipping into 6 ohm territory at times, making the 700, like the 770, fairly easy to drive, at least on paper. Sensitivity is rated at 86 dB, which is down slightly from the 770's 88 dB rating. Lose the grills and the 700 reveals a unique driver layout, with the tweeter resting below the woofer and off-center, meaning it's possible to have the tweeters rest towards the inside or outside of a stereo pairing. I preferred the sound of the tweeters on the inside, and for the remainder of this review, we'll be describing their performance set up this way. From a distance, the build quality of the two models look almost identical, but when you get up close, the differences become more apparent. While the wood veneer and construction are of a very high quality, they are not on the level of its big brother. Knocking around the cabinet reveals a cabinet that is definitely less dampened or inert. The 700's retail price includes stands, which is a very nice touch. We opted to use our personal solid steel stands based purely on preference. Like with the 770, the stands ship flat pack, so be prepared to build them yourself. Once built, the stands are very sturdy, but I wouldn't call them the easiest to assemble. As for setup, the 700s perform best when pulled out from our wall a good 2 feet, with the speakers sitting about 8.5 feet apart with just a little bit of toe-in to lock in that center image. Now, the Missions arrived around the same time as the new Wharfedale S14, so to me, it just seemed like a no-brainer in terms of pairing. It wasn't. I'm not sure why those two products don't seem to get along, but the Wharfedale and Missions, it just sounded vague, boomy, and it lacked control, and these are traits that I don't normally associate with Wharfedale. I had actually thought about returning the speakers without a review, but Kristi insisted we try them with the new Audiolab 9000A, which also had just arrived, and what a difference maker. This is a way better pairing, and one I would definitely recommend. But to be sure that I was hearing everything the Missions had to offer, we carried out the bulk of our critical listening using the Technics R1000. With the right amplifiers finally nailed down, again, we're using either the Audiolab or the Technics, I could definitely hear tonal similarities between the 700 and the costlier 770. The 700s are a little bit more mid-range focus and rounder or less controlled in the bass, and running a quick sweep 20 to 20 at our listening position confirms as much, playing down to around 40 Hz easily with some room compensation, letting them hit their factory reported frequency specs. There was a bit more energy throughout the mid-range when compared to the 770, which measured a bit more linear, but from about 2 kHz on up, these two speakers are more or less interchangeable. And what I saw in our in-room response tracks with my subjective opinions to a T. Regardless of the music, electronica, jazz, classical, or pop, the 700s have a warmer, less precise sound from the mid-range on down to the low bass compared to my experience with the 770s. I'm not saying the 700 is sloppy, it just has more of that old-school sound compared to the surprisingly precise 770, especially in its bass. The 700 below, say, 100 Hz has more cabinet energy compared to its big brother, so instruments like the double bass or bass guitar or even kick drums bloom without necessarily playing deeper or possessing the same detail or grip as the 770. I'm going to stop myself short of saying the two speakers' bass performance is night and day different, but there is a difference, and I ultimately preferred the 770. Now, as for the mid-range, the 700 is warmer and richer compared to the 770. The difference isn't as noticeable as what I heard in the bass, but considering the 700's less inert cabinet, the mid-range isn't wholly neutral. The beginning of Moby's Ever-Loving and throughout Seville on the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack, acoustic instruments like guitars, they just sounded a little more lively with a touch of added body or bloom compared to, say, the pearlescent S4Bs or even Kristi's favorite Concept 50s. Now, this isn't a knock against the 700, mind you. I found found the 700's mid-range to be very enjoyable, especially the effect it had on female vocals, as it gave a greater sense of body to artists who sometimes come off as a little bit more treble forward or nasally. As for the treble, I didn't find the 700's high-frequency performance to be objectionable. Because it uses a soft dome tweeter, like the 770, high notes are extended and airy without a great deal of sibilance or shimmer. I also found the 700's to play nice with a lot of different genres of music, never becoming harsh or fatiguing at high volumes. But if you like some bite or metallic sheen to your high frequencies, the 700 may not be the speaker for you. But for the rest of you who want to listen for hours on end, the 700 proved to be pretty ideal. Moving on to soundstage and dynamics. The 700s cast a wide and well-appointed soundstage. However, when compared to the 770s or smaller two-way bookshelf speakers, the 700s aren't quite as focused when it comes to detail and separation. Center imaging is good, but I would not call it laser etched. Now, dynamically, this is where the 700 and the 770 really meet. Both are capable of playing quite loud without a lot of fuss, and both scale really well when it comes to different genres of music, sounding intimate 1 minute and positively huge the next. Obviously, at louder volumes, the 700 gives up some control, especially down low, but all in all, it's an impressive speaker dynamically for less than half the cost. Now, as for comparisons between the 770 and the 700s, as they say, the devil is in the details. So, if you've skipped to this point, you're missing out and you're going to want to go back and rewatch the video. But for the final word on this matchup, I'll leave you with this. To me, the costlier 770 is the better speaker, and it is worth its asking price. It is without a doubt a worthwhile upgrade. The 700, it's a good speaker, but it doesn't punch too far outside of, say, its $2,000 weight class. Compared to the Wharfedale LINTON, this is by far the more even matchup, with the LINTON getting my vote. I prefer the overall size and look of the Mission and consider it better than the LINTON, but the Wharfedale is easily the better value, not to mention the more full-range sounding speaker with similar levels of warmth or charm, well, for less money. Where the two differ is dynamics. I feel the 700 is going to come off as just a bit more agile and lively, whereas the LINTON could, at times, need a bit of coaxing to really dance. The Mission 700 is a far nicer looking speaker than JBL's L82. The L82 sounds great, and those foam grills are iconic AF. But damn, the materials and construction are cheap, cheap, cheap. The Mission destroys the JBL in this regard. Sonically, the L82 is going to be a lot more even keel across its frequency range, which may or may not be a positive in your book. I could be happy with either, so in terms of sound quality, I'm calling this one a tie. But for those of you on a budget, know that either the Polk R200AE or the even more affordable original R200 were not embarrassed nor completely blown away by the Mission 700. The 700 is better built, it uses nicer materials and finishes, but sonically, the R200 is every bit in the conversation with the costlier Mission. I gotta say, I like what Mission has chosen to do with the 700, offering it up after the 770, which for many of us has been a sort of reintroduction to Mission as a player in the hi-fi space. While I won't say the 700 is equal to the 770 in terms of performance, it does get you 80 to maybe 85% of the way there for less than half as much, which is bound to please a lot of people. Not to mention, allow them to experience the Mission sound for themselves. So that's it. That is now my take on Mission's brand new 700 loudspeaker. But before we go, what'd you think of them?
I really liked them.
Yeah?
I'm glad that we figured out that it was the new Rotel amp that made them sound so bad.
And I'm not usually one of these people that believes too much in like amplifier synergy or pairing. I mean, in theory, a good amp is an amp, you know, so it shouldn't have mattered, but damn. That's probably one of the first times in 2 years where I've been like, wholesale, do not do that.
Yeah, it was not good.
Yeah.
It was not good. So much so that we almost sent both back.
Yeah.
I mean, the Rotel is still, the verdict is still out on that one,
Yeah.
but once again, Audio Lab saves the day.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. You guys have no idea, like my level of frustration in that moment with the Rotel and the Mission, and, you know, Kristi was like in the kitchen and I'm just like, what is wrong? Just, it's getting to the end of the year, you know? It's getting to the end of the year. I'm like, put them in the wood chipper. And then here comes the 9000A and it just lowers the blood pressure.
The Audio Lab is like, I got this, guys.
Yeah.
I got this.
It's anyway, like a hand on the shoulder.
Yeah,
like,
calm down.
Chill.
Calm down. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, I really love the design. I actually prefer the size of the 700s to the bigger ones.
Oh, absolutely. 100% agree with you.
I just, you know what I really wish?
What?
I wish that there was an option to get them without the stands. And I mean for either speaker.
Ooh.
Because I hate that you have to assemble the stands yourself, especially considering most stands come pre-assembled.
A lot do lately, yeah.
And I personally think that the stands cheapen the overall look of both of the speakers.
Okay.
And without them, I think that Mission could then offer the speakers at a lower price, and making the 700s, especially the 700s, a lot more competitive.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm assuming that a lot of people already have stands. I mean, I know that there are people that will not even look at bookshelves because after they factor in the cost of stands, they're like, well, I should just go with tower speakers. And for that group, this is a great opportunity because
it's
it's
included.
It's all included. But again, the fact that you have to put them together, which is a hassle, and I don't know. I just don't think that they look very. I just don't think the stands look very good.
Yeah, I'll say when it comes to the 700s, more so than the 770s, you can definitely get away with using third-party stands because they are a slightly smaller footprint in all directions. And so the 770s are a big speaker. Yeah, because of the 700's smaller size, I do think that you can get away with some third-party stands. Just make sure that they're around the approximate height of the stands that, the 700 was meant to go with. But I agree with you. You could probably cut the cost a little bit by allowing customers the ability to buy them with or without stands.
Now, as far as your comparisons go, I'd have to say that I would definitely rather have the 700s over the L82s and even the R200s. Just, I think visually, the 700s are way more interesting, and I really did like the sound of them.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more fun than, I think they're a more fun speaker than the R200, as solid as a speaker that is. And I agree with you, the L82, it's cool looking, and if you're after that vintage flair, that's definitely an option. I just, like you said, I think that the materials they use are just subpar for what they're charging. Now, as far as the Lintons go, that's a harder choice for me. I mean, I feel like if you are into something more vintage, it's they're a similar offering. I want to say that the Lintons had pretty good materials.
Oh, excellent
and build.
Materials for $1,400-$1,500.
Definitely a little bit more of a subtle look. The Missions definitely make a statement. Yeah. Without the speaker grills on. Yeah. Which some people are going to love, and some people are going to be like, that's too much. So yeah, that battle is a little more difficult for me. I could really be happy with either of them.
Yeah, I agree. I think some people may argue that because the Linton is a true three-way speaker, that is going to make it a better value or better than the Missions. But I gotta say, even though the Missions are a two-way speaker, there wasn't like this huge gap like in the crossover between where the woofer and the tweeter sort of hand off. So I wouldn't worry too much about three-way versus two-way argument here. I think both are absolutely fabulous. I could be happy with either, but I preferred the look of the Mission 700s. I think the veneer is a little bit nicer. It's a little bit better, nicer grain pattern. And I like that graphic white front.
Oh, I do too. I think it's super cool.
Yeah.
Okay, one last comparison because I think people are going to ask solely because it's another vintage inspired speaker.
Okay.
How would you compare the Missions to the Heresy 4s? Obviously, the Heresies are more expensive at $3,200 right now.
Yeah.
I think I would still pick the Heresies, but I'm curious what you think.
Oh, wow. You know what's funny? I didn't even consider that combination. I never even thought to compare the two. Okay. So like the Lintons, the Heresies are a three-way speaker. They do have a dedicated mid-range horn. Obviously the Heresies are going to be a little bit more dynamic. They are a little bit easier, less taxing on whatever you choose to power. They are going to have a little bit more of a peaky treble compared to the soft dome tweeter inside the 700. So the 700 is going to potentially be a better match across a wide range of genres of music at a lot more volumes. But for some of you, it may lack that little bit of presence too. Like the Heresies have presence. All KLIPSCH speakers have presence, but the Heritage products specifically, and the Heresy 4 to a degree the most, because it has smaller tweeter and mid-range drivers. So it projects just a little bit harder than, say, our Cornwall 4s or the Forte 4s that have that big throaty mid-range horn, which is just, oh my God. But we're not talking about that. So the Heresies, for me, I still really love them because they have this kind of quality that just makes them really vividly real and live, and they put music front and center.
Yeah, they are one of the most unique speakers I think I've ever heard.
Yeah.
They just have a character to their sound that's, I mean, it really stands out. And you either absolutely love it or I think you fall into the other camp.
You know which one you know what other speaker we didn't compare it to? KLIPSCH Model 3 or Model 5.
Oh, you're right.
Model 3 would be less expensive, but a two-way. Model 5 is a three-way, about the same cost. This one's not on me. Which one do you pick?
Oh, goodness. Well, okay, well, between the 700 and the Model 3, that's easy.
Okay.
I'm getting the missions.
Okay.
Now between the Model 5s and the 700s, gosh, I don't know. I mean, I haven't listened to the Model 5s in a while, so it's hard for me to, talking just purely about sound. I think you would be happy with either.
Yeah.
I personally prefer the look of the missions over the Model 5s. As we know, I'm not a huge fan of speakers that have rake. And the Model 5s are just, I don't know, they're now that I've had time to see just more and more speakers, those are a little less appealing to me visually. So if we're just going on looks alone, the missions, hands down.
I will say looks alone and everything like that, I'm with you. I'm the mission brand in general, but 700s even over the 3 or the Model 5. The one area where the Model 5 may prove to be a better fit for some of you is the fact that it is a completely sealed design or acoustically suspended. You do have that attenuation switch on the back, which does make it a little bit more friendly depending on your room composition and placement. So those are some things to consider. Some of the bass bloom in the 700 is the result of that port. You're not going to find that with the Model 5, but understand that the Model 5 may be more taxing with certain amplifiers because it's not getting any of that extra kind of bass reinforcement from its cabinet design or port or boundary compensation, blah, 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 blah. So the 5s versus 700s is a little bit more of a trickier toss-up for me. Definitely taking the 700 over the 3. But yeah, I think the 700 slots kind of right in the middle between like Wharfedale 700 and KLIPSCH Model 5. And I think you get kind of the perfect blend of both the Wharfedale and the KLIPSCH with the 700. So maybe it is the better overall or all-rounder in that kind of category. So that's it. That is now our review of Mission's brand new 700. What do you guys think? Let us know down in the comments below. While you're down there, let me know, which one would you pick, 770 or 700? If you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Go ahead and ring that bell so that you're notified when new videos come out. If you use any of the links that Kristi left for you down below, know that that is a great way that you have continued to show your support for this channel and the work that we do here. And both of us thank you very, very much for doing that. Follow me on Instagram at Recovering Audiophile. And that's it for us today. I got to get out of here. They are starting to just fire up the leaf blowers. So remember, the only person who has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. We will not see you this coming Sunday, but we do have one more video in 2022 that you're not going to want to miss. So until next time, thank you for watching, and we will see you on the next video.